his hand suddenly reaching out and gripping her chin to force her to look up at him. Matthias clicked his tongue as he pulled her closer to him. "What should I do, Layla? I didn't do all this just to hear a shallow courtesy like that." Feeling as though she was doused with a cold bucket of water, Layla tried to shake his grip away from her, but he was much too strong. Matthias was stronger and faster, and not a second later he had kissed her. She tried to shake away from him, but too late did she realize that his other hand had come up behind her head and grabbed a handful of her hair when she felt a sharp pain as he lightly yanked her head back. Layla gasped out in pain, and that was the opportunity Matthias took to slide his hot tongue inside her mouth. His tongue darted inside, exploring her mouth ravenously, before sensually entwining around hers. Layla couldn't help but moan at the sensation. Layla's hands shifted, moving from the windowsill and up to Matthias' shoulder, trying to shove him away. But it only served to deepen their kiss instead. I can't breathe. This kiss now was quite different from the kiss she remembered having from last summer's final day. The kiss that scarred her deep in her heart. Instead of the fierce devouring kiss he let her taste before, it was now firm, but gentler, demanding but more delicate against her lips. "No. I can't take any more." As she gasped for air, Layla's nose picked up his body scent, a blend of the blood of prey along with his minty fragrance. Unfortunately, she neither had time or the strength to think past her current panic. All she could feel was the way her body locked up in place as she stared at him in a flushed manner, her mouth agape as she continued to breath in air. It wasn't long before his grip on her hair loosened up, allowing her to break free of his grasp. "Ack!" Layla exclaimed. Suddenly, she was yanked forward, her face now a hair's breadth away from his. Matthias regarded her face a little bit, eyes flitting around her features. The grip on her waist was tightening up, she feared he would crush it sooner. "Is Phoebe's life only worth this much?" he whispered in a sultry voice. Such a seductively coercive tone fell on her ears. Layla let out a quiet gasp as the grip pained her, before his tongue dove back in her mouth. All she could think about then was how she'd much rather be in pain instead. However, Matthias was persistent in his efforts, his tongue resuming their previous ministrations, dancing expertly around her own tongue as he tasted every nook and cranny in her mouth. Even her hands, who were tirelessly pushing him away, can now only hang limply on his shoulders. She could feel the prickling of tears begin to form, willing them not to fall. Each time Matthias intertwined his tongue with hers and sucked on it, she gasped for breath, squeezing his shirt, letting out involuntary moans that seemed to have been scraped up from the depth of her throat with every brush of his tongue against hers. With every noise she made, Layla felt so ashamed of herself. She could feel herself grow dizzier with each passing moment, her body moving in response to whatever he was doing. Their bellicose kiss continued, accompanied by Bill's whistling, along with the sound of soup being poured into a bowl. "Layla!" Uncle Bill's voice shook Layla from her unforgiving thoughts. "Layla? Answer, Layla," she thought to herself, "I must answer quickly." Their lips were now moist with each other's saliva, making it glisten in the dark. Layla felt her knees go weak. But she caught herself before she fell to the floor completely at the thought of how the two of them looked like right now. She urged, but her movements were sluggish as she dazedly stared at the way Matthias took out his handkerchief. Layla watched him slowly bring it up to his lips and wipe off the evidence of what they had done. It was only when he slightly tugged her face forward did she remember he was still gripping her chin. Next he brought the same handkerchief he used, to wipe off the evidence from her lips as well. Calmly Matthias picked up her glasses he had discarded earlier and replaced them back to where they should be until finally releasing his grip on her. Matthias ordered, taking hold of her hand, making her fingers grasp the used cloth firmly. "Wash it and bring it back." He rubbed a few small circles on her wrist before swiftly letting her go, and turned around to ride atop his steed. "Layla?" Bill's voice as setting food on the dining table suddenly stopped when he began to wonder why there was no reply. What is she even doing that she's not answering? Uncle Bill's footsteps shook Layla out of her daze as she noticed them grow closer. Immediately, she rushed back towards her door and swung it open, just before Uncle Bill's hand, which was raised to knock, was about to hit it. Uncle. Did you call for me?" She lamely excused, making a show of fixing her hair, which Matthias had been gripping not too long ago. I did, you wouldn't answer no matter how many times I called, so I was worried something had happened. Uncle Bill told her. I'm sorry, I must have dozed off without realizing it. Alright, then, come out now. Yes, Uncle. Bill gently patted her head before turning back to the dining room, before leaving her alone. As soon as I heard Uncle Bill's footsteps moving away, she turned to the window and saw Matthias mount his horse and ride away. Only then did Layla allow herself to feel faint and unceremoniously drop to the floor. She rubbed her hand over her lips a few times and wiped away the evidence of what they had done. Matthias's handkerchief, which was in her weakened grip, fluttered around her as it too fell, and innocently sank in front of her crestfallen form. To request a transfer so suddenly. Are you serious, Miss Llewellyn? The principal's lips pursed into a thin line, her face set with a slight frown as she regarded the woman across from her. Layla, on the other hand, sat calmly yet resolutely as she waited for her decision. From her eyes alone, the principal could see that Layla was determined about this. Yes, that's what I want. She responded immediately, as though the thought hadn't just hit her out of nowhere. She wasn't kidding about her desire to move away. To teach in a different school, a much farther school. I can't say I understand. Didn't you say our school is the closest one to your home? And there aren't any suitable openings at the other schools in Carlsbad. That means you'd have to go to a distant city to change schools. Yes, I know. Layla did think about those things. It was impossible not to. But she knew she needed to do this. The principal hummed in thought before leaning back on her chair. If something happened here at the school, tell me. If it is something I can resolve, I will do so. It's nothing like that. Layla vehemently denied. It's just. I want to experience a wider world, so I made this decision. A wider world? He sighed in resignation. If that's what you truly want, Miss Llewellyn, then I can understand, but it seems you've gotten used to the work here, and the children follow you well, Miss Llewellyn. Rather than quitting immediately, think it over more carefully until the next semester. I told the principal I understood, but my decision won't change. I'm leaving Arvis. She thought to herself. Layla did, in fact, think this through carefully. It took her quite a few sleepless nights and busy days before she reached such a decision. As much as it pained her to be leaving, and thus wouldn't I be able to spend more precious time with her Uncle Bill. But I decided to be brave anyway. I learned, after losing Kyle, that if I try to cling too hard, I might lose even more. It's just going back to the original plan, that's all. I can still see Uncle on the weekends, and if I board somewhere, it'll cost money, so preparing for university might slow down, but all of that will be fine. If I can leave Arvis, and leave that man behind. She took in a deep breath before her breathing stuttered at the sight of a simple white cloth. There, stuffed innocently inside one of her bag's inner pockets, was the Duke's handkerchief. Unconsciously, her fingers went up to gently rub her lips in a back and forth motion. Memories of their latest kiss assaulted her mind before she shook them away and breathed in deeply. Now I know how that man operates. She knew where she was going next. If I have to face him in the end, just as he wants, then it's best to return it when we happen to pass each other on the road. I don't want to seek him out. If I wait here, where the Duke's carriage passes every day, I should be able to meet him. His grip on the steering wheel lightened as he made a soft turn, entering the path leading up to Arvis Estate. As soon as he passed the boundary, he caught in his peripheral a woman, taking shade under the tree. He took note of the bicycle propped against the tree as she stood idly waiting for someone. He slowed down to a stop, eyes glancing in her direction. Layla, who was daydreaming, suddenly raised her head because of the unexpected presence of someone. In her anxiousness, she staggered back when he stopped before her. He unbuckled and got out of the car, locking the door behind him. As he neared the woman, he blinked as he recognized her. "Hi, Miss Llewellyn," he greeted as soon as he was near enough to be heard. "Is that person Marquis Lindman?" "Good evening, Mr. Marquis." She politely greeted back after a whole minute, though the nervousness in her persisted. "What are you doing here?" Riette asked her. Well, let's see, it couldn't be the doctor's son." Riette chuckled, eyes watching her in scrutiny. "He's not in the estate at the moment." He pretended to think about it for a few more moments before gasping in mock dramatics. "Could it be? You're here for Duke Herhart himself?" right? The man Miss Llewellyn is waiting for must be Matthias, right? What? Layla's eyes snapped back to him at his mocking tone. She could feel her cheeks flush, eyebrows furrowing in response, the shame she felt hidden in her eyes by the glasses she wore.
It seems my guess was right on the market, right? Well, I do have a sharp feeling in things like this. A few days ago, you also chased him into the hunting area, right? It seems there's something important you need to give to Matthias. Sorry, but I have to go now, excuse me. Layla forced herself to say, discreetly maneuvering her bag behind her as she turned to indeed leave the place. She'd catch the Duke at a different time instead. However, Riet was taller and nimbler than her. He managed to catch up to her quickly, hurting her to a stop as he blocked her exit. Wait a minute, do you want to go home just like that? You haven't met Matthias, have you? He asked. Please step away, Mr. Marquis. Layla once again dodged to pass him, but Rieti instead grabbed her bike and held her back. Layla frantically tried to get away from his grip, which in turn was also beginning to get on his nerves the more she struggled. Do you know where the Duke you've been awaiting so long is now? Duke Herhard is currently on the way to collect his fiancée. Poor you, Miss Llewellyn. Rieti continued to hold her, his grip on her bike preventing her from leaving. Let's be honest, Matthias is a very boring man, right? I'm sure the way Matthias treats his lover is also boring, not much different from himself. What do you mean what you just said? Layla hissed, her breath hitching at the accusation. He blinked innocently before smirking at the growing rage on her face. The Duke's dark love. Oh sorry, was I too rude? If so, I am very sorry, Miss Llewellyn. He continued to mock, tilting his head for added effect, but the smugness was still there. Get your hands off. He continued to mock, tilting his head for added effect, but the smugness was still there. How about just you be with me? Let the boring Duke Herhard live in happiness with his equally boring fiancée. Let's play and have fun together. I can definitely entertain and pamper you more than Matthias. Layla was fuming at the blatant insult to her face. She wanted to tear that smug look off his face in response to baseless accusations. Please let go of my bike. Yes, all right. Though Miss Llewellyn is liked by the doctor's son and also by Duke Herhard, but I'm the only one who's hated to the fuck, that makes me a little hurted. Rieti feigned dramatics and he let it go. But Rieti released her grip on her bike before she could grab her bag, preventing her from leaving. Should you not give us what you need to say before you leave? It would be a pity if you just go home without any results after waiting for a long time in this cold weather. Well, if you need help, I can deliver it to you. Rieti said cheerfully as she pulled the bag from Layla's hands. Why do you beak like this to me? She could feel the growing frustration threatening to burst inside her as her eyes blurred and lips began to tremble. I just feel annoyed. Seeing this woman wait for Matthias here, even though there's no certainty. It feels like I'm seeing myself standing there, waving lamely, staring at Matthias's back as he goes to pick up Claudine. Then driving off alone, aimlessly, to nowhere. Could this be some form of self-pity? Or perhaps a deep sense of shared destiny? Layla wasted no time in snatching it away from his fingers, wrapping it close to her bosom protectively. She snorted and took her bag and left. Hey, where are you going? Forgive me, Miss Llewellyn. In her haste, she failed to notice her striped shoes slip off. I will never trouble you anymore. Riet called out after her. But Layla was no longer listening and was gaining steady distance between him. Riet only sighed in pity before noticing the shoes left behind. Even though my joke was a bit over the top, but... Did she hate me that much that she throwed away her shoes and bike to escape? Hey, wear your shoes before running out. Miss Llewellyn. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands before groaning in resignation, and began sprinting towards the direction she left before disappearing by the corner. He didn't get too far before he heard the alarming sound of a collision between something metallic and another object. Miss Llewellyn. Riet slowly began to pick up pace as alarm bells rang in his head. As soon as he turned the corner, he stopped in bewilderment when he saw the sight of a downed woman in the middle of the road in front of a familiar black car, who seemed to have skidded to a stop. The driver, it seemed, was the first to check up on the woman who stayed still on the ground. Oh my god, what is this? Why suddenly? Layla? That's right, Layla. Miss Llewellyn, are you all right? Can you move? Riet could only silent dumbly as he stared at the scene before him, taking in Layla's crumpled form. "Oh my God! Layla!" Claudine exclaimed in panic as she saw the woman. And soon someone got out of the car and came up from behind. Riet's eyes then were drawn towards Matthias, who regarded Layla's prone form with indifference. She still clutched her bag like a precious artifact. Matthias raked his eyes over her before his gaze turned to the side to meet Riet's gaze, who stood uselessly in front of an overhead lamplight. It was fortunate that the accident looked worse than it actually was. Despite having been hit by the car, Layla had only sustained minor injuries, and thus, still managed to stand and walk fairly well. Matthias had suggested taking her to the hospital to be sure, but Layla had stubbornly refused. "Should we not let him go like that? It seems she was hit by a car quite hard. I've tried to persuade her, but Layla refused to go to the hospital. But she just ride home on her bike, so it looks like she didn't have any serious injury." She couldn't help but recall the way Layla had absolutely rushed in front of the car. Normally, Claudine was a calm woman, but when Layla appeared out of nowhere and got hit by the car, she assumed the worst. Thankful, if that's so. Claudine sighed in relief. Speaking of Layla, she recalled the way Riet had been holding onto Layla's shoes just moments after he rounded the corner where Layla got hit. She must admit, she almost let her composure slip at that very moment. She had not expected Riet to be that rash and impatient. Claudine's eyes shifted to her peripheral, discreetly scrutinizing her fiancé. She expected something after that near-death scare for Layla, but she could not read him at all. Even after this, he was still so indifferent. If she didn't know any better, she would have thought he did not care for Layla at all. Matthias didn't even look livid about the driving hitting her accidentally, nor question Riet about why he had been holding onto her shoes. For some why. "I feel so pity for Layla. It's me, Riet. Come in." "What's the matter?" He looked down at his desk and began to rearrange the documents. "I feel guilty the owner of this alcohol is working hard, while I'm dropping it all alone. Let's get a drink together. When are you finished from work?" "Soon, sit over there." Matthias hummed, indifferent as ever, but sharp eyes regarding the Marquis in scrutiny.